Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. Don't make the same mistake as my son. The father of a teenager who drowned in a river in Castleford last month warns of the dangers of open water.
I couldn't cry, I couldn't scream. I just stood there watching everyone trying to do the best for Tyler, front bridge.
As hot weather continues, we'll be live at Pugneys Country Park in Wakefield. Also tonight, head teachers in North Yorkshire get tough on vaping, threatening teenagers using them with suspension. And from real royalty to royalty of the rails, King Charles visits Pickering, pulled by Flying Scotsman, the famous loco, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary. And how a specialist trike is scaled Kilimanjaro could help a Leeds woman achieve her dream.
And it's been another hot day, 29 degrees across our region. I think this is a place where most of us would rather be. A gentle onshore breeze has meant that our coast, Flamborough, absolutely fantastic today. But just how long will this heat wave last? Join me to find out.
Hello, thank you for your company on this lovely Monday evening. The father of a teenager who died while swimming in a river in West Yorkshire has talked to Look North about the shock of losing his son. 16-year-old Tyler Wilson drowned last month in the Calder in Castleford. His dad, Carl, now wants to warn people of the dangers. It comes as Wakefield Council release a new film about the risks of swimming in open water. Tom Ingle is at Pugneys Water Park for us this evening. Tom, it certainly looks really inviting there. Looks glorious.
It does, doesn't it, Amy? It's a beautiful evening at the end of a very beautiful hot day, and the water looks absolutely wonderful. But of course, as we always say when we tackle these stories, unfortunately, all too regularly, it's about breaking that cycle of temptation, because it isn't what you can see that hurts you, it's that cold water shock, it's what's out of sight. And that's exactly why the father of Tyler Wilson spoke to us today to say to others, don't suffer the same fate that my son did.
Yeah, where them reeds are, shouted I'm stuck, went under, didn't come back up. He was just here in this area. I saw them all, like, all these bushes were flat down here where all rescuers, you know, they got him out, pushed him up into an ambulance up there. From what I gathered, there were a group of them messing about down here, and Tyler said he was jumping in, and he jumped in. He had his clothes on, his shoes on. I've done it, everyone's done it. You think you're invincible, and you're really not, clearly. I've never seen as many police, ambulance, rescue teams. There were all sorts of decent people here to try and help out. I felt inhuman at time. I was shocked. I couldn't cry, I couldn't scream. I just stood there watching everyone trying to do the best for Tyler, front bridge. I've done it myself. It's just a stupid thing to do. But what else do they do? Where do they go, do you know? It is a fun thing, you know, swimming. It's brilliant. But round here, you know, there's new one at Ponty. You can go to swimming baths, or you can go to places where the patrol. It's not worth anyone's life to come to a place like this. There's no one about, there's no help, there's no nothing. There ain't even a rubber ring here, you know, a life ring. It's just definitely not a good thing to do. It leaves a devastating trail for people to pick up. It's done me mentally, physically, emotionally. It's ruined me.
Well, I'm joined now by Paul Davey from West Yorkshire Fire Service and Councillor Jack Hemingway from Wakefield Council. Let's talk to you first of all, Paul. I'm finding it extraordinary that you haven't actually been dealing with any incidents over the last couple of days, given the weather. We can never repeat this message too often. What are those water safety tips?
Well, firstly, we'd just like to communicate the key messages for us is not to enter the watercourses in the first place. They present so many untold hazards. There's underwater hazards that we can't see. There's also the cold water shock. That can prevent you from swimming and breathing properly, which which impacts you further. So the key message really for us is to stay out of the water altogether.
And people might not think about the swimming competency. They'll go, I can swim, I've been in a pool many times. It's different when you're in a body of water like this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Cold water can be anything from 15 degrees Celsius and below. Even advanced swimmers can find it difficulty when entering these cold water sources, not understanding the actual problems that it can actually provide. What we do suggest is that if you do find yourself in difficulty, try and float to live, lie on your back, spread your arms and your legs out and call for help.
Thank you very much indeed. Jack, the council's put together a video. What's the reason behind that?
Well, we wanted a really hard-hitting campaign that will drive home the water safety message. It's been in production since October last year for Drowning Prevention Week, but also in the response to the really tragic incidents we've seen in Wakefield and around the country. We just want to really push home that message to school children, people of all backgrounds, people that might not understand English language signs and things like that, that water safety is crucial. Please don't get in the water, and as Paul has said, if you see somebody in the water, call emergency services immediately.
So what's the plan with the video? School assemblies, things like that? Is it that sort of grassroots level?
Exactly. So school assemblies, social media, the council's going to push it through all our channels along with our partners. We've worked very closely with the fire service and others around this campaign. We want to get the message out as widely as possible.
Of course, in an ideal world, people wouldn't be tempted to get into this water because there would be local swimming pools. We've seen councils, not just Wakefield, close swimming pools because of austerity cuts. Are we now seeing terribly unintended consequences, drownings because kids can't go to swimming pools?
I don't think it's necessarily that. I mean, there's no doubt local authorities are in a very difficult position and we'd love to have more swimming pools. But at the end of the day, as Paul has said, tragically, these incidents can happen to the most advanced swimmer. That water can be freezing cold, there can be hidden dangers. So it's more about getting the message home to people of all backgrounds, not just school children. Please don't go in the water, stay safe this summer.
Jack, Paul, thank you very, very much indeed. Hard words from people who experience the real difficulties of dealing with these incidents and, more importantly, the terrible aftermaths of these incidents. Amy.
Absolutely, Tom, thank you. Next tonight, head teachers across Harrogate have written to parents warning about the dangers of young people vaping. They say they've seen a rise in the number of pupils taking up the habit and want to highlight the risk of children needing medical attention after vaping. Take a look at this. Last month, the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health said youth vaping is fast becoming an epidemic. And use of the vape seemed to be increasing. Figures show that in 2022, just under 8% of 11 to 17-year-olds said that they'd experimented with vaping. But a more recent survey this year found that figure has risen by half, up to 11.6%. So what about adults? Well, that figure is around 7% using a vape regularly, and anti-smoking campaigners say a ban would make it harder for those trying to quit smoking. Michelle Lyons has more.
Yeah, so these are the vapes that we've confiscated in school.
Gosh, they look like marker pens, don't they?
Yeah, many of them do, and these are the ones that we've collected post-pandemic where it's really kind of exploded, but hard to find disguised in pencil cases, maybe look like some lipsticks, some look like USB sticks, and it really looks clear to me that these are marketed for children.
These e-cigarettes have been confiscated from pupils at Harrogate Grammar School, but this hasn't deterred many from continuing to vape. Now head teachers across the district have joined forces to try and combat the problem.
Many head teachers across all the networks that I'm in are all talking about the issue of vaping in schools, which seems to have emerged post-pandemic. It really seems to have increased in prevalence.
11 head teachers in the Harrogate district have now signed a letter expressing their concern about children possessing vapes at school and warning parents action will be taken, including the risk of suspension.
The BBC recently took a number of vapes that had been confiscated from a school to a laboratory to be tested, and the results were very concerning.
This device was found to have high levels of lead, nickel and chromium. In 15 years of tests, I don't think we've ever seen lead content like this in vape products.
The dangerous levels of metals that we're just starting to understand that is in some of these vapes, that really worries me about what we're doing for these young people, and surely we can do better as a society and as a community to look after our young people.
I went to a gig the other week and they were selling e-cigarettes on the same stand as like feather boas. So it just shows how accessible it is.
Without ID, it's probably easier for me in town to get a vape than it is to buy a pint or something. Like, it's just not as big a deal as what drinking or drugs are.
Head teachers in Harrogate now hope the threat of suspension will deter their pupils from using e-cigarettes and thereby protect them from any future health risks that may be linked to vaping. Michelle Lyons, BBC Look North.
Of course, let's not forget it is illegal to sell vapes to under 18s. I've been speaking to Greg Fell. He's the Director of Public Health in Sheffield. I asked him about the health concerns and the way that vapes are marketed for young people.
If you smoke, vaping is much safer. Smoke cigarettes, vaping is definitely much safer. If you don't smoke, don't vape. And the third thing I'd say right at the outset is marketing of vapes to kids is just not okay. This is largely tobacco industry who are doing this, and we know why they're doing this. They're doing this to create a market. Nobody other than the tobacco industry thinks that vaping in children is a good thing to do. So yes, there is a problem. And what we've seen is many of the tactics that we thought we'd seen the back of about 20 or 30 years ago about marketing of cigarettes to children is now happening in vaping.
How damaging is vaping for young lungs?
It's much safer than smoking cigarettes. Let's be clear on that. There are many thousands of chemicals that get into your lungs burning cigarettes. But the honest answer is we don't know. There are examples that we see where children and adults are hospitalised on account of vaping. And it's worth noting that there's a lot of illegal vaping products on the market that have much higher concentrations of nicotine and are much more addictive.
How can you tell the difference between a genuine vape and counterfeit?
I genuinely don't know, actually. What we've seen, and occasionally speak to our trading standards officers, they frequently tell me it's really hard to see the difference between counterfeit vapes and legal vapes.
Government says it's planning steps to reduce vaping amongst young people. What would you like to see happen?
Taxing, particularly disposable vapes, which are the cheapest and the most popular vapes for kids, and they're really easy to get hold of, illegal or illegal. For the legal ones, we can tax them, make them more expensive, and that makes people who don't have much pocket money but less likely to be able to get hold of them. I'd like to see much stronger regulation of advertising and promotion. Put them in plain packaging, get them out from in front of the counter to behind the counter, and get rid of the names associated with sweets and the flavours, because they're very definitely focused at children. And the third thing that I'd like to see is mandatory age verification, and I'd like to see much stronger enforcement.
What about the Australian plan? They're banning it altogether and only allowing e-cigarettes on prescription.
I wouldn't go there because it sort of medicalises what is essentially a consumer product. But what we do need to do is be much tighter and much stricter on the promotion of and marketing of and access to vapes for children.
That was Greg Fell talking to me earlier. OK, let's get some more news in brief now. More than 2,000 workers are to be made redundant after delivery firm Tufnell's Parcels Express went to administration. The Sheffield-based business has appointed administrators after failing to secure new funding. The majority of Tufnell's employees working across its 33 UK depots will be made redundant. Just 128 staff have been retained. Around 35 firefighters have spent the day tackling a large fire in Leeds. Videos on social media showed large plumes of black smoke over Bramley just before midday. 12 vehicles were destroyed in the fire on Swinnan Lane. People nearby reported hearing several explosions, and Stanningley Bypass had to be closed for a time while firefighters extinguished it. The Life of Pi, which premiered in Sheffield, has won 3 prestigious theatre awards. The Tony Awards ceremony was held last night in New York. It's Broadway's biggest night of the year. Life of Pi won Best Scenic Design in a Play, Best Sound Design and Best Lighting Design, with the team thanking Sheffield in their acceptance speeches. Now, part of North Yorkshire will have no voice in Parliament for several weeks after an MP quit with immediate effect. Nigel Adams, who has represented Selby and Ainsty since 2010, stood down this weekend shortly after the resignation of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. It means there'll be a by-election. David Rhodes is in the constituency of Tadcaster for us this evening. David, it's all yours.
Amy, there is a political power battle going on at the moment between the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his predecessor, Boris Johnson, and this story has dominated the headlines in Westminster over the past 48 hours. Typically, a Westminster-centred story doesn't really affect people outside the so-called Westminster bubble, but on this occasion it does, because Boris Johnson stepping down as an MP on Friday also means people in this constituency of Selby and Ainsty no longer have an MP as well. Nigel Adams was an MP you may never have heard of, but this was a politician that walked the corridors of power throughout the most tumultuous time in British politics as a loyal aide to Boris Johnson.
Well, the Prime Minister has pulled off a remarkable feat. He's done what many people said was impossible. He's negotiated a new deal with the European Union.
Nigel Adams was Boris Johnson's loyal lieutenant, bag carrier and enforcer. When Mr Johnson was forced to resign as Prime Minister, it was expected that as a thank you, Boris would nominate Nigel Adams to sit in the House of Lords. It now appears that move was blocked last week.
Boris Johnson asked me to do something that I wasn't prepared to do because I didn't think it was right. That was to either overrule the HOLAC committee or to make promises with people. Now, I wasn't prepared to do that.
In his resignation statement, Mr Adams remained loyal to the Tory party, saying, "I have left Parliament to return to my private sector career, but I will continue to make the case for Conservative values. It is essential that the Conservatives under Rishi Sunak win the next election, and I will do my utmost to ensure that happens." With a majority of 20,000, Selby and Ainsty should be a safe Tory seat, but some Conservatives are nervous about a forthcoming by-election.
I think it's really sad that we're in this place. I don't want us to have a rift in our party. I want to see some unity. And I think it's really, really sad.
As Boris Johnson climbed the political ladder, so did Nigel Adams. The end of Boris Johnson's parliamentary career for now has also ended the career of one of our region's Conservative MPs. This is going to be an intense political battle here in the coming weeks. Remember, Labour are currently 16 points ahead of the Conservatives in the national opinion polls. It is shaping up to be a long, hot summer here in North Yorkshire. There's going to be a fierce by-election battle in the weeks to come. Amy.
We've been here before, thank you. OK, quick throw to Sal now. Lots to fill us in on the sport.
Yeah, and let's start with Leeds United ownership, because a Yorkshire football finance expert says Leeds United's takeover makes it more likely they'll be promoted back to the Premier League next season. Leeds United chairman Andrea Radrizzani sold his stake in the club for £170 million to co-owners 49ers Enterprises on Friday. Dr Rob Wilson from Sheffield Hallam University says Leeds are in a stronger position now that the sale has gone through.
I think the deck is stacked heavily in Leeds United's favour. Of course, the parachute payments are worth around about £45 million, so that, of course, will help. And then, naturally, this change of ownership should free up some additional cash reserves, really, for them to invest in the playing squad and the infrastructure around the team and really increase the likelihood of bouncing straight back up to the Premier League.
In Super League, Wakefield Trinity finally managed their first win of the season as they beat Leeds Rhinos. Trinity had lost their first 14 games but chalked up a win by 24 points to 14 despite having a man sent off. Coach Mark Applegarth says his players stood up for each other and answered a few questions about the team. The win leaves Wakefield 4 points adrift of Castleford Tigers at the bottom of the table. Cricket now, and in day 2 of the County Championship Division 2 match between Derbyshire and Yorkshire in Chesterfield, Derbyshire recovered from a score of just 17 for 4 earlier in the day and are now 248 for 4. They lead Yorkshire by 6 runs. Yorkshire are yet to bat in their second innings, having accumulated 353 runs first time around. Now, it's a year since a survivor of the Manchester Arena bombing successfully climbed Kilimanjaro in an adapted mountain trike. Martin Hibbert was paralysed in the terrorist attack and was determined that his injuries wouldn't stop him completing the extreme climb. Today, he donated the chair that helped him get to the top to a woman from Leeds who also has big dreams. I went to meet them both this morning.
When I reached the summit, I'd only just come out of intensive care 5 years earlier. Life looked you know, very bleak. It was an amazing feeling, and to do it as a paraplegic, something I will never forget.
12 months ago, Martin Hibbert, severely injured in the Manchester Arena bombing, reached the summit of Kilimanjaro. The journey was made possible by a team of supporters and one very special mountain trike.
It's basically, rather than pushing with the wheels, you push in with a push and pull motion, and that puts you forward. So there's like a chain on it. It will literally glide over all terrain. So it's an amazing bit of engineering.
Now Martin wants to help others reach their goals, and today he's giving his trike away to Emma Kaywood from Leeds, who won a competition run by the Spinal Injuries Association.
I was paralysed 3.5 years ago, yeah, just as we went into lockdown. I haven't been able to sort of go out with my family on dog walks. I haven't been able to go with my son, who loves to go mountain biking, to be able to just go with him. I have had this dream for a while now to go up Snowdon, and in this chair it wouldn't be possible. This is going to be life-changing. My world is just going to open up.
It will take time and training to get used to the all-terrain capabilities of the mountain trike, but for Emma, new adventures and Snowdon await.
The best bits is how fast it can go and the places it can go. It was going over rocks and the grass and everything. It's a bit scary when it breaks fast because it tips, but I'm now used to it and I know I'm not going to tip out, but it's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Amazing stuff. It was great to meet them this morning, Amy.
Oh, yeah, well done to her. Fantastic. She's going to have some real adventures, isn't she? Thank you, Sally. Thousands of people have lined the streets in Pickering in North Yorkshire to welcome King Charles. The royal train chugged into the market town on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary. The King then visited a shop owners and a local church. Phil Bodmer was there for us.
In the simmering summer sunshine, the people of Pickering turned out in their thousands, ready to receive their royal visitor. On the stroke of 10:30, the world's most famous locomotive hauling the royal train steamed into Platform 1. The King was here to help mark some special milestones. 100 years since the Flying Scotsman rolled out of Doncaster Works, and half a century of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway.
He was very relaxed, he put people at ease. He did say how he admired the railway and how pleased he was to be here, and I think we should be pleased at that. It is lovely to see a monarch come along and actually acknowledge that. It's really spectacular.
His Majesty unveiled a plaque to mark 50 years since the lion was taken into preservation. Then, cheered on by the crowds, opted to walk the short distance through the town's bustling main street, stopping frequently to speak to those who'd waited patiently in the searing heat.
I was wandering through town this morning and saw the crowds, and I had to ask what was going on, and somebody said the King was coming. So we all decided to come down and see what we'd see.
We are very pleased to see our King today. Me and my family, everybody, we are really excited. We heard the news yesterday, and we're waiting like 9:30 till now.
I met him when I was about 8 years old, so
Did you really?
I shook his hand when he came to the Memorial Hall. Got to shake his hand again. So.
Did you today?
Yeah.
So what was that like? What did he say when he came over to you?
It was just so pleasure to meet you. But he obviously had a lot of people to go through, so...
The monarch also took time to speak with some local shopkeepers.
He just greeted Carolyn and us, and shook hands, and he was on his way. He was very nice and very polite, and that was it, really. To get that close, it's an amazing moment, so we were impressed, very, very much so.
Then as we move down, we have St John the Baptist.
The final stop, the Church of St Peter and St Paul, where the King was shown some of the most complete sets of medieval wall paintings in Britain. Then, almost as quickly as it began, it was over. As royal visits go, this was relatively short, but for those here today, the memories will live long. Phil Bodmer, BBC Look North.
Now, the King's previous visits, it's been pouring it down. Pickering was glorious for him today, wasn't it? Stunning up there.
Absolutely fantastic. Everywhere, of course. 29 degrees. And, we mentioned on Friday's Look North there was a fire that had started on Marsden Moor. I just want to go over just how high the risk is
can see it here
of wildfires. Just take a look at this. It's we've sort of zoomed it in. This mauve colour is the highest possible fire risk anomaly. So you've got the entire western side of the UK, the Pennines is right in there, and this stretches through northern France as well. Actually, you can see where the high pressure's been over the last 4 weeks. It's basically been in that area, but this, again, is at high risk. This area is at high risk of fires breaking out, so we all need to take care, and it's all because it's been so dry, and we're expecting a lot of sunshine and a lot of dry weather over the next few days. Talking of which, I'll show you a few pictures you've sent in over the last 24 hours, and that is Sands End, with not many people on the beach. I'm quite surprised at that, but it has been a fantastic weekend in Sands End. It's going to be sunny all week. This was York, the King's Arms filling up as that picture was taken on Saturday afternoon. And the third picture is interesting. Now, these are towering cumulus type 2, don't forget that one, and they eventually can develop into cumulonimbus clouds, which are thunderstorms, and that is exactly what's happened across the Midlands into Chesterfield, and they're drifting to the south of Sheffield right now. So there could be some localised flooding in this part of the world. We'll come on to more details in a minute, but if you've got any pictures you want to send in, if you see any flash flooding this evening, any big thunderstorms, send the pictures in. We'll try and get them on Look North either tonight or tomorrow. So the headline for tomorrow is a very straightforward one. It's dry, it's sunny, and once again, it's hot. This is the Atlantic pressure chart. You can see these weather fronts are trying to come in, but they're really weak. High pressure stays with us all week. The first hint of a few showers breaking out, more unsettled weather perhaps early next week, but for now it stays as it is, but it could turn a little bit fresher as humidities drop off. Now, these are the thunderstorms that developed over the Midlands. They've tracked straight through Chesterfield and heading to the south of Sheffield. So if you don't get any rain in Sheffield, I bet you can hear the thunder rumbling to the south of you. So those thunderstorms will push away northwestwards, and then it looks set to be a dry and a clear night and quite a warm and muggy one. Not too high temperatures, to be honest. We're looking at lows of 11 or 12 degrees. Tomorrow's high water times then 1:07, 7 minutes past 1 in Filey and 25 past 1 in Bridlington. So, not much to say tomorrow. It's dry, it's sunny, it's hot, there will be no clouds, and we'll see highs of 27 degrees. And very quickly, the further outlook. Look at that if you like the sunshine.
I do, another scorcher. So those in Sheffield need to put their cushions away tonight.
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
Garden cushions away, just until tomorrow. That's it from us. Mark Ansell's here with your late news. Bye-bye for now.